Welcome everyone, this is Nathan Lindorf with The Rational Independent, and while I wait for Costco to open, today I really am going to rant. The article is from CNN, exclusive, new evidence in special counsel probe may undercut Trump's claim documents he took were automatically declassified. And this article goes into a bunch of legal back and forth wrangling. Basically, this is part of an investigation going on by a special counsel to see whether or not President Trump committed any crimes as it relates to documents that he had in Mar-a-Lago in relation to whether or not they were handled properly from a classification perspective. And this whole topic infuriates me to no end. And here's why. In this article, I'm actually going to go ahead and read you the quote. It's particularly infuriating. I've mentioned before how reporters will sometimes show their bias by how they order information. They'll sprinkle information into the article so that later, when it comes to a fact check or a challenge, they can point and say, no, I really did cover it. But they present it in such a way that it's very easy to miss. I'm a detail reader. I read the whole thing. I catch things because of that. And I found something right in the middle of this long article. While presidents have ultimate declassification authority, the limits of that authority haven't been tested in the courts. That sentence should be the end of this kerfuffle. CNN, who is trying to go after Donald Trump, trying to destroy his reputation, clearly taking the opposite of his position, saying that he does not have the authority to do what he did, that he broke the law. By their own reporting, they admit that presidents, by nature of the Constitution, have plenary power over classification. They can, of their own will, without any regard to process or protocol, classify or declassify documents. Whether or not they can effectively do that is another story. If you try and classify something that's already public knowledge, there's really no point. It's not like you can take it out of people's minds. At the same time, you don't have to go through a process to declassify things. In the intelligence community, it's known as, I forget the term, but something like declassifying live. There are times, based on what I've heard and observed, there are times that intelligence analysts will be listening to the president give a speech or in a press conference, and he'll reveal details that are classified. And declassifying in real time. That's what it is. The intelligence analyst's response to that is, I guess we're declassifying in real time. In other words, these things that used to be classified were just spontaneously and without process declassified by the president in the middle of a negotiation, in the middle of a speech, whatever. That's his right to do, regardless of party, regardless of politics. That is his constitutional authority. And in this reporting, CNN admits it. Further, they say that the limits of that declassification and classification authority haven't been tested by the courts. What that means is there are no precedents in law proscribing this authority. In other words, they're saying that the courts have not ruled in such a way as to limit this authority. To review, I'm not even going to get into the rest of the article because it's nonsense, but to review this kerfuffle, it goes simply like this. President Trump, when he was president, says that he declassified certain documents and took those home, away from the White House and brought them to Mar-a-Lago. If he did that, then they are no longer classified. They are now declassified, which means that there are no further restrictions or regulations regarding the handling of classified documents that apply. They are no longer classified. If they're not classified, nothing about the handling of classified documents applies in this conversation. It's immaterial. Now, when it comes to the other side of this argument, to the people who are trying to go after President Trump, what they're saying is he did not follow the proper process and protocol. Effectively, what they're saying is that he did the right thing but in the wrong way, or he did something he was allowed to do but not in the way he was allowed to do it. But what that means is, if you look at the intelligence agencies, they are branches typically of the executive. They're part of the executive branch. They act under the authority of the executive branch. So if you look at, for instance, the Attorney General is a presidential appointee, and he operates with Senate confirmation, and there's a few other things, but the Justice Department is effectively executing the laws on the books. They're putting forth the enforcement of the laws as directed by the chief executive. If the AG's office, if someone in the intelligence community, if one of these pieces of the executive branch puts forward a regulation or a protocol for how to declassify or classify documents, they are doing so under the authority of the commander-in-chief, the head of the executive branch. They are using the president's authority as delegated to them to set process. They are now arguing that because the commander-in-chief did not follow the process established by his subordinates, he's in trouble. This whole thing is ludicrous, except if you're a low information voter or you're unwilling to really look at this, then you are going to accept what you're told as if it has substance. The other piece of this, where they try and lay a glove on President Trump in this regard, is the archivists. The National Presidential Records Act, which is a congressional act, and the body, there's an organization that handles archiving of presidential records. So let's follow the argument from that side. The legislature has put forward a body that is working to preserve and corral and protect presidential records. That's probably a worthwhile thing and probably well within the rights of the legislative branch. But what they're really saying is that the legislative branch has the authority to override the president's will in this matter. That's a conflict, a constitutional conflict between two co-equal branches of government. The natural resolution of that is a judicial ruling from the Supreme Court to describe the limits of either executive power or legislative power to make sure that these two parties play nice with each other. That's how this works, checks and balances. So you cannot just say the legislature did this and therefore they get a trump card over whatever's going on in the executive. And you can't equally say the president gets to do whatever he wants and ignore congressional oversight. These two branches should provide a check on each other, but they are co-equal. One does not get the trump card over the other. The trump card comes from rulings from the federal judiciary, particularly the Supreme Court, which in this reporting, they're making the statement that the court has not ruled on this, has not set limits on the presidential authority for this topic. That's the ball game. This issue is over in the minds of anyone who's not captured by the left. That's my Reddit rant for today. Good luck out there.